I guess I have a basic prejudice that a physician should not be involved in taking life. We can allow it to happen, but the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. I think it's a dangerous thing when a doctor is willing to take your life, for whatever reason.
Could Tom Hyde have killed himself all by himself?
I guess Tom would have had to have some way to kill himself. He didn't have the physical resources, I don't think, to pull the trigger. I don't think he could have. I suppose he could have figured out some way to do it if he'd have wanted to without some help, but it would have been difficult, I think, for Tom, other than that if he had waited and he had not eaten and he had not had any fluids and he were in pain and we sedated him or gave him medications to relieve that discomfort, Tom would have died in a very short period of time.
So he could have stopped eating and refused hydration. The pain would have ensued. You could have prescribed something that would have made that more comfortable, and then he would have died.
Yes.
Is that assisted suicide?
No, it's not.
Is there anything else that you want to add to this, or have Heidi tell us? Or Heidi, is there anything you want to add before we conclude this discussion?
I want Tom to be free. I've watched him suffer too long. I'm sorry, honey.
On August 4th, Heidi and Tom spent their last morning together.
I got him up. And that's when I helped him up and I got his clothes on for him. And then he went over, and I walked out here and he was over by the crib and he was crying. And crying very hard with Carmen. And I went in there and it was pretty sad. So we cried a lot. Didn't we? When they came, I got Tom into his wheelchair and wheeled him out to the car. And it was almost euphoric, not happy. It was dreamlike.
By then, it was clear to Dr. Kevorkian that anyone besides himself who was in attendance at the very last was subject to prosecution. So he recommended to Heidi that she not be present. They said their goodbyes outside of their apartment. And then Jack went to another location in his van, and that's where the event took place.
Kevorkian drove Hyde 45 minutes to Belle Isle, a park near downtown Detroit.
I went to pick up the phone like a normal, everyday phone call, and he says, "Hi, Heidi, this is Jack. And I just want to let you know everything went well." And I said, "Okay." And he said he wanted to talk to Margot, so I said, "Okay." And I handed the baby to Margot. And I thought, how well can something like that go? And I went into the bathroom, and it was a rush of emotion that I have never experienced in my life.
I assisted Thomas Hyde in a merciful suicide. There's no doubt about that. I stated emphatically.
Can you understand why some people would go to Dr. Kevorkian? Why they would be drawn to him?
It's a puzzle to me. I must admit it's a puzzle to me because, frankly, the whole process that he goes through seems a little sensational and a little tawdry. I think if I wanted to die, you'd sort of fantasize some very great last experience and then slip away comfortably, not being parked in the back of a rusted Volkswagen van, doing some relatively unpleasant, unaesthetic thing to die.
But for Dr. Timothy Quill, there is no mystery about Kevorkian's appeal.
I say that's probably a pretty sad indictment of the doctors that they have seen before. I mean, I think people are genuinely scared about what might happen to them. Not everybody, but many people have, particularly people who have witnessed hard deaths or who are in the throes of this kind of an illness. And it must be a relief to come in and have somebody who will talk to you about that, who will acknowledge that it exists, that there's a real problem here. I think these 20 cases are as much an indictment of our current medical system as they are of Dr. Kevorkian. Where are these people's doctors? These conversations, the conversation that each of these individuals had with Dr. Kevorkian should have been happening with their doctor, the doctor who's going to work with them throughout the end of their life, no matter what path they choose.
Hello there.
All the survivors that I've met, I've become very close with. We can put our arms around each other and we can feel what each other feels because we've been through the same thing.
On Super Bowl Sunday, the families of Kevorkian's patients gathered to remember their loved ones and to celebrate the man who gave them death.
Dr. Kevorkian isn't mainline, and Janet wasn't mainline. And major changes in society never occur by mainline people. It's the people that are different, the people that are willing to risk all for an idea and for a principle.
Kevorkian still faces charges in the Thomas Hyde case, and he has promised not to assist in any more suicides until the higher courts rule on the constitutionality of the Michigan law.
No, Jeff. These are the tyrants, the medical tyrants, the religious tyrants, and the legislative tyrants. Yes. The tyrants are the ones that cause all the problems in the world.
Anybody wish to sign?
Kevorkian is now leading a political campaign to change the Michigan law.
Now, he will be successful, and someday the world will still remember a little Armenian doctor by the name of Jack Kevorkian who was brave and who changed the world in this little way for the better.
I think he's raised consciousness, but he's also scared the heck out of people. 20 patients, a lot of patients. We have a tendency in our culture to seek a quick fix for things that are very complicated, and if you want a quick fix, Jack Kevorkian's the man. And this is not the kind of decision you want a quick fix for.
If the lives, and indeed the death and the suffering of Janet Atkins, of Marjorie Wantz, of Sherry Miller.
When you've witnessed a hard death, it changes you in a fundamental way. You no longer see this as a simple issue. You can't say it's simple, doctors should never get involved in this, because it's so compelling and terrifying.
Of Marty Ruart, of Ron Mansour, of Thomas Hyde.
After Tom died, I realized what a gift Jack had actually given to him. At that point, it's all Tom wanted, and I couldn't deliver it, but somebody else could. And I began to love this person because they helped Tom.
Of Jack Miller, of Elaine Goldbaum, of Hugh Gale.
I think he has tapped a nerve in the public. Now people are having a chance to reflect a little bit on, gee, we probably don't want what Dr. Kevorkian is doing, but we also don't want an environment where doctors are afraid to assist at all. So what do we want? That's the real question.
Of Jonathan Grant, of Marty Ruart, of Ron Mansour, of Thomas Hyde, of Donald O'Keefe.
Funding for Frontline is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you. Frontline is produced for the Documentary Consortium by WGBH Boston, which is solely responsible for its content.
This is PBS.